This video will demonstrate the correct installation and tightening procedure for anchor rods of overhead signs in Minnesota Department of Transportation. Overhead signs can either span over a roadway, cantilever over a roadway, or be mounted to a bridge. This video will focus on those signs that are either simple span or cantilevered. Anchor bolts for overhead signs are either 2 1/4 or 2 1/2 inches in diameter and are type B, grade 55 steel. Base plates for these signs are 2 inches thick. This video will walk through the correct tightening procedure for an overhead sign structure with anchor rods tightened with a double nut moment connection. Throughout the installation procedure, the contractor should be referencing MnDOT's high-strength anchor rod installation record and should be familiar with it before the in-field installation. This form outlines the installation procedure for the anchor rods and nuts and verifies that the procedure is done correctly. As the contractor completes each step, he or she should mark either yes or no under the question column on the form. This ensures that the contractor has followed the procedure correctly and the nuts are fully tightened on the anchor rods. Next, each step of the process will be discussed in detail for the installation of an overhead sign structure. Step 1 of the installation form requires contractors to verify that the anchor rods, nuts, and washers are the correct type, size, and grade for the project. In the case of this overhead sign installation, the anchor rods are 2 1/2 inches in diameter, type B, grade 55 steel. The nuts should conform to ASTM A563 standards, and the washers should conform to F436 standards, unless otherwise specified by the project engineer. When the contractor has verified that the anchor rods, nuts, and washers are correct, he or she can mark yes under column 2 of the installation form and may continue to step 2. Step 2 of the installation form requires contractors to verify that the anchor rods are clean, plumb, and undamaged. MnDOT specifies that the anchor rods must have less than a 1:40 slope to be considered plumb. If the rods are out of plumb or damaged, the contractor must contact the project engineer. The contractor should not move forward with the installation if the rods are not suitable for the job. Once the contractor has completed step 2, he or she can mark yes on the installation form and may continue to step 3. The third step of the installation process is to lubricate the anchor rods, nuts, and washers. MnDOT specifies that Bostik Never Seize Mariner's Choice is the required anti-seize and lubricating compound to be used for MnDOT anchor rod installation projects. The outside, exposed threads of the anchor rods and the bearing surfaces of all nuts and washers must be lubricated. These surfaces should be lubricated directly before the installation. Once the contractor has completed step 3, he or she can mark yes on the installation form and may continue to step 4. The fourth step of the installation process is to level the bottom nuts, referred to as leveling nuts. The leveling nuts should all be aligned to the same elevation. The distance from the top of the foundation to the bottom of the leveling nuts should be less than 1 bolt diameter, but more than 1 1/4 inches for overhead signs. Therefore, the feasible distance range for this particular overhead sign is 1 1/4 inches to 2 1/2 inches. The contractor may measure a feasible distance on the 4 corner nuts, and then align all other bottom nuts to this elevation. Once it is ensured that the bottom nuts are leveled at the correct distance, the contractor can mark yes on the installation form and may continue to step 5. Step 5 requires contractors to snug tighten all nuts. After ensuring that the bottom nuts are level, the contractor can install a lubricated structural washer on top of each nut, followed by the installation of the overhead sign, base plate, and support. Next, lubricated washers can be placed onto the anchor rods on top of the base plate, and finally, the top nuts can be turned onto the anchor rods. The contractor must next snug tighten the top nuts. Tables 1 and 2 should be referenced to obtain the correct snug tightening information. If the contractor is utilizing a hydraulic wrench or torque wrench, Table 1 specifies the snugging torque to use for the installation. For this overhead sign, the contractor should use 550 foot-pounds as a snugging torque. However, if the contractor is using an open-end wrench, he or she can reference Table 2. For a 2.5-inch diameter anchor rod that is grade 55 steel, the contractor needs to use a 53-inch long wrench. It should be noted that Table 1 should be used only for smaller diameter anchor rods, as the wrench lengths required for larger diameter anchor rods are improbable. Using either a torque wrench, hydraulic wrench, or open-end wrench with the correct specifications, the contractor should snug tighten the top nuts of all anchor rods following the star pattern. 2 examples of star patterns are provided on the installation form. For this overhead sign, the contractor can follow the example corresponding to 8 anchor rods. The contractor starts at the anchor rod labeled 1 in the figure, tightening the nut to snug tight, and then moves on to the next anchor rod. The entire cycle should be completed twice to ensure that all nuts have reached snug tight. After snug tightening the top nuts, the contractor snug tightens the leveling nuts utilizing the same star pattern. This tightening can be done with an open-end wrench and should be completed in 2 cycles. Once the contractor has completed snug tightening all nuts, he or she can mark yes for Step 5 on the installation form and may continue to Step 6. Step 6 requires the contractor to fully tighten the top nuts using the turn of nut required. The required turns are listed in Table 1. For a 2.5-inch anchor rod, 1/12 of a turn is needed. To achieve this turn correctly, first, the contractor marks one corner of a nut and the adjacent anchor rod or base plate. Each face of a nut is equivalent to 1/6. Therefore, the contractor must next turn the nut until the midpoint of the next face is lined up with the marking made on the base plate. The turn of nut process should be completed using the same star pattern as used in Step 5 of the installation process. Additionally, the turn of nut process should be completed in 2 cycles. Therefore, the contractor should aim to reach approximately half of the required turn of nut on the first cycle and reach the full turn of nut on the second cycle of tightening. The required turn should not be exceeded. If the contractor is using a hydraulic wrench, the wrench should be set to the verification torque value when completing the turn of nut required. The verification torque can be found in Table 1. In the case of this particular overhead sign structure, a verification torque of 3,300 foot-pounds is needed. Once the contractor has completed the turn of nut, he or she can mark yes on the installation form and may continue to Step 7. If the contractor did not use a hydraulic wrench in the previous step, the contractor must next confirm that the verification torque has been met. If the verification torque has been achieved, then the nut is fully tightened. If the verification torque has not been achieved, continue to tighten the nut until it is. Do not exceed the verification torque. An inability to achieve the verification torque may indicate thread stripping. After the verification torque has been achieved, the contractor can mark Yes on the installation form under Step 7 and may continue to Step 8. Step 8 of the installation form instructs contractors to apply a retightening torque to the top nuts 48 hours after initial tightening. This retightening torque accounts for any creep in the galvanizing of the threads. The retightening torque is 110% of the tightening torque and is listed in Table 1. For this particular sign, the retightening torque is 3,630 foot-pounds. If the retightening torque has been achieved, the installation process is complete. If the retightening torque has not been achieved, continue to tighten the nut until it is. Do not exceed the retightening torque. Once the contractor has completed the final step, he or she can mark Yes on the installation form. To finalize the installation process, the contractor should ensure that all areas of the installation form are filled out completely. This includes verification of all steps outlined in the installation procedure, the make, model, and serial number of the torque or hydraulic wrench utilized in the installation, the calibration date of the hydraulic wrench if utilized, the structure and project ID numbers, and the contractor name. Additionally, both the contractor and a MnDOT representative should sign and date the form. If there are any comments, such as issues encountered during the installation, the contractor should note them on the form. If the contractor has any questions about the installation procedure after reading the installation form, he or she should contact the MnDOT project engineer before the installation. It is important that the contractors follow the installation procedure correctly. Ensuring that anchor rods and nuts are properly installed not only minimizes future retightening efforts, but ensures that the public is safe. Thank you.